Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I'm sharing with you the first lesson in our Waldorf main lesson block for anatomy. This is the hygiene main lesson block that includes nutrition and physiology as well as muscles and bones. For this first lesson, we opted not to use the lesson that was provided in the Waldorf main lesson block by Live Education. This one has a lot of information on how to present the lessons, and the first lesson is on a Greek goddess of health, and we decided to skip this lesson and do something that was a little bit more religiously and culturally significant for us. But I did use this book by Charles Kovac. This is also another Waldorf resource for anatomy on muscles and bones. That's the title. And we started out with chapter 1, Uprightness and the Spine. And while reading this chapter aloud rather than presenting the lesson, I ended up pausing almost with every paragraph to present some additional information, some historical content or religious content that really rounded out this lesson for us and made it more religiously and culturally appropriate for us. And I really felt like this blended the Waldorf concepts and the Waldorf pedagogy with the first lesson on anatomy, as well as bringing in some things that were significant for us. Now, originally, I wanted to do an illustration that worked with the first lesson. We are using our main lesson books that are 9.5 inches by 12.5 inches. I did choose red for this anatomy main lesson block. These pages are blank on both sides, and they do have onion skin that separates each of these pages. Now, this format for the book is quite large for this grade level by middle school. Usually we're working with smaller main lesson books, but I am going to continue with the larger format. I really like these books, and I like that there's enough space for us to do the written work that coordinates with the one illustration that I still am attempting to do with each lesson. So for this lesson, I was thinking of working on making the spine as an illustration for this first lesson, but I decided to keep this illustration for our second lesson, and instead we're going to do something that is both significant in our anatomy unit, but also significant for us for our family religiously. So we're going to do just a simple illustration of the human form, and this is going to not have any details at all. It will literally just be head, trunk, and limbs. And I am going to use some pastels for this project, and I'm probably just going to do it in one of these maybe more neutral tones. And that way we can talk about the 4 elements of the human body. And so using the Arabic words, we have the nafs, the aqil, the qalb, and the ruh. And so those translate to the soul or the spirit is the ruh. So it's what gives us, it's somewhat unknown and unidentifiable because you can't measure it and you can't test it, but you know when someone has a soul, is alive. Then we have the nafs, and that's the human body. It's what gives us life, so separate from our individuality that each of us has unique for our soul. So our soul is unique, but what gives us life, you can tell that humanity or humans are alive or animals are alive, but each of us are individual. And then our heart, our qalb, is what's often used to talk about the seat of emotion. And then our aqil, or our intellect, is usually used to talk about our thought processes and our thinking and our intellect. And so we're going to have those different parts somewhat defined, but maybe not identified. We will still mark the heart because I feel that even though there's differences of opinion of where emotions come from a significant perspective, we still associate the heart to emotions. And then on the adjoining page, we are going to do our written work. And so the written work will be both our personal religious reflections as well as some notes from the book. And what we will not do today, but we will do at some point, is a cover page for our anatomy main lesson block. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on our illustration first. I'm starting out with these pastels. I picked them up secondhand and they have a beautiful assortment of colors. I am going to find them kind of challenging to use. I am going to check them first to make sure that I'm using the color that I want, but I'm finding that they are a little bit too dry and it's creasing my page. And so I keep trying to soften those edges and it's not working. So I pull out my Sargent Art chalk pastels and I use those instead. So we have our simple figure of a human, and then I thought it was too plain, so I added some yellow around it, and I'm finishing off with some matte finish just to protect our chalk drawing. So once that airs out, then we can start doing our work, our written work for this lesson. I end up doing a lot of written work, and it wasn't expected, and we still didn't even finish all of the content for this lesson that we wanted. On this onion skin, I am adding the parts of the body or the different aspects of the soul. And this is a religious portion as well as a secular portion because we do identify different parts of the human body. There's the physical, there's the emotional, there's the mental, there's the part that makes us alive and the part that makes us individual. But I also included a lot of specific things regarding our religion on this onion skin page. And I was trying to work around the human form that you can see peeking through the onion skin. And I was trying to add the portions, the written content, where those parts would be on the body. But very quickly I realized that that's not working very well. And I end up with some strange paragraph formations that's somewhat like two columns. And so if I were to do this again, or my advice would be to just go ahead and write them as paragraphs or even as two columns. And when my daughter did this portion of the lesson, she just wrote it right over just on lines rather than in columns, or rather than trying to work with the image that was below the image that we had drawn. I am writing about the spirit or the ruh, and I'm writing about the heart, the qalb, and I'm including those Arabic words as well. There's the nafs and the mind, the aql, and then the body itself. Now I have all of these notes on the blog post that accompanies this video, so you can find the notes that I've taken, you can find pictures of the lesson itself if you'd like to do something similar, and you can find more details about the materials that we used for this lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and do a very simple decoration on this adjoining page to sort of make it look like maybe something organic. They're just a red little frame around the page. And then I titled this Our Body, Our Amana, which means it's our trust. And then for the content for this one, I ended up running out of space. So I was only able to do the 5 before 5, and that's youth before old age, health before sickness, wealth before poverty, free time before being busy, and life before death. And these are the 5 things that we should take advantage of before we don't have it. And that was just one part of the lesson that we discussed when we presented this lesson, but there was so much more that we're going to have to save for another lesson to include. I hope that you enjoyed this look at our first anatomy lesson for our Waldorf main lesson block. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video for more information, as well as links to all of the resources we are using for this main lesson block. You can find that link down in the description box below. And if you'd like to see how we're homeschooling on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram and now on TikTok at Pepper and Pine.